Terry Bolt, the Bachelor of Innovation program at UCCS, and I'm going to talk to you today about our model called the Business Model Pyramid. This is a model of how you can look at your company or organization, and one that we've designed for teaching students in our freshman level entrepreneurship classes how to model a business and how to create this model. So at the very top of our pyramid in gold is our value proposition, because that's the goal from which everything else will flow. But to get the value, we have to have customers. So we have our green customer segments because they're the ones who are paying the bills. They're going to produce in different ways the revenue we're going to get. The customer segments are reached from our company through our channels and customer relations, which is how our company's activities, resources, and partners are connected to the customers. To support our activities, resources, and partners, we have a bunch of costs that are how we're going to deliver the information. And then on the very bottom of our company is the revenue model, which is in the long term how we've extracted the value out of everything. This is how our company makes all of its money. And I like to think of this as a pyramid because our revenues have to support our costs, have to support our activities, have to support our channels and relations, customer relations to support our customers. Right? So the base model of the pyramid is what's supporting what, and it helps make sure that you recognize that your revenues have to be greater than your costs if your company is going to be supported. Now, all these terms might sound familiar because the business model pyramid is a simplification with some advantages over the business model canvas, which has 9 segments. The value proposition, which was at the top of the pyramid, is here in the middle. The customer segments are over on the side. The value propositions and customer segments are connected through the channels. And on the left-hand side, we have our activities, resources, and partnerships. All of these at the bottom then have the cost structures and revenue streams. The business model canvas has one advantage that I can look at. All of this is about deriving value, and all of the left-hand side is about delivering value. But for many students, especially in the beginning classes, this really loses the focus of what's the most important thing. From an established company's point of view at scale, right, all of these things make sense. They're all supporting each other. I can look at it in a simpler 2D form. And if I look at this, in fact, for a company, I can think about a large company doesn't have one customer segment and one value proposition. If I look at the pyramid from the top, I see that there are different facets of the company and different value propositions for different customer segments, all of which support different revenue models and cost structures. And a company has an advantage because they can actually support a new facet because they have such a large revenue model, they can support a lot of costs. But for a startup company, you don't really know all the information. You can't quite do that. So what does a business model pyramid look for like a startup company? Well, I'm missing a bunch of pieces when I first start out. I can think of the value proposition of the customer segment, and clearly there's going to be some costs as I try and start up this company. If I'm lucky, and in the older models, we actually went out and we had business plans. We took that value proposition, customer segments, and some estimate of the costs, and we put all that together, and then we said, well, here's what it's going to look like. We tried to convince an investor to give us enough money where we might support building the whole pyramid. And it's risky because if any of these scaffolding pieces fail, the company might just go out of business. And it was tough to raise that much money. So people started looking at things differently, and so a slightly different model for the startup company is to think that we actually build this from the value proposition upward, but it's a delicate balancing process because you have to find such a way that when you build this, if revenues are less than cost, this will fail. So as I build my elements, cost structures up to revenue models, if I nail the value proposition of the customer segment, this might all work out. But if not, if my revenues don't actually cover my costs, if I've not lined up my customer segment value proposition, this whole thing's going to teeter and fall over. Not a very good way of looking at it. So we want to build more of a Mayan type pyramid with square blocks. We're going to make sure we have a very stable value proposition and customer segment. And in the beginning, we actually then want to build on top of that and expand it. So I can have my first set of scaffolding that gets me from the customer segments all the way to revenue. Now that scaffolding might not be very expensive because it might just be sweat equity where you as the founders go out and you do everything it takes to figure out how to connect to those partners. You find some partners who give you some value or not. You connect them. You keep your costs so low that your first revenues are enough to more than cover your costs, and then you can start expanding your value proposition, giving more values to potentially larger customer segments to get greater revenues, which will then allow you to build out more of your organization to fill out the channels, build more partnerships, which will drive up your costs. But if you do this right, building on these stable bases, you can actually eventually build a very big revenue model at the top, on top of your cost structures that are building on your activities that connect to your customers through your channels, all of which are built on top of your value proposition. So this is the way we're going to approach it in this class. We're going to build from the bottom up a stable structure of your pyramid, recognizing that you're going to fill things out instead of just viewing it as there are blocks that are going to be filled in. You have to think of how this is going to be a stable structure as you build your business model pyramid. And if you become an established company and your pyramid is now stable, you can turn it back over and look at it from a traditional pyramid. But this inverted pyramid is the way startups have to start because they don't know what business model is going to work. They don't know what's the right value proposition for the customer segments and how they're going to extract revenue. So thank you. That's the business model pyramid.